670 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. This thing we call life is really a team effort, you know? It takes many of us to make all of us. And for a long time, probably most of humanity's existence, you ladies have been supporting us guys as we pursued whatever it is we were trying to pursue, right? Mm-hmm. Not that we weren't there for you, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Our next guest, Andreas Wilderer, is on the phone. He's got a book called Lean On, The 5 Pillars of Support for Women in Leadership. Andreas is a business leader, a stay-at-home dad, while his wife pursues her career. And so that's part of what we want to focus on. He's also a leadership coach, a keynote speaker, an entrepreneur. He established the Male Spouse Network, and he's an advocate for stay-at-home dads. And Andreas, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pittsburgh today.
Pittsburgh. How's the weather in Pittsburgh today?
It's sunshine, a little bit cold, but sunshine. So wonderful.
Andreas, where's your accent from?
I'm German.
German? All right, yes, I got to listen.
Came 10 years ago.
All right, I know how to say I love you. Ich liebe dich. I know how to say that. My grandmother was German.
Yes, you did it. Say right.
Yeah, she would always tell that to her dog. Ich liebe dich. So how did it happen that what does your wife do? Tell me about your wife.
My wife is the CEO for a water company called Wilderer Water Technologies.
And how did the two of you meet?
We met back in Germany. We were best man and maid of honor on my brother's wedding.
Oh, wow.
And things progressed from there.
Did you catch what do you have to catch? The
bouquet and the garter.
Did you catch the garter?
No, we don't throw the garter in Germany, but she catch the bouquet. So.
Okay. So the tradition held to be true. She was the next one to get married.
I think so. Yes, she was the one. It was just a few months later, so we were very quick.
So, do the 5 pillars of support that you write about in your book, Lean On, do they apply to all of us, do you think?
I would say so. It's more a conversation about how can you support each other. Of course, there are some specifics to what problems stay-home dads or women in leadership or women in the workplace are going through. But the base idea applies to everybody.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 children, 12 and 8.
12 and 8. So when the 12-year-old was first born, when your first child was born, I'm assuming both of you were home for a while, right?
I was home longer, and she went back after 8 weeks.
Oh, okay. Was that hard for her to do, to go back to work?
I think it was hard for her to do, but she also had the peace of mind that I was staying home with him, mm-hmm. and so it was an easier transition for her to go back to work.
Mm-hmm. And your book is absolutely wonderful because you let everyone know that the best foundation you have to begin with is your unity as a couple.
It is, and that's the most important, is being a couple, being open conversations between each other. That's the base foundation of every good relationship, what I would say.
So do you think to be a stay-at-home dad, you really have to do it from the beginning? You couldn't switch roles halfway through?
You can switch roles halfway through, but then you have to allow the partner the transition, the period. So you cannot expect for him to switch after 5 years, let's say, and then that he knows everything right away. He has to find his way into it.
How did you get over the stigma? Because I hate when people say dads don't care as much as moms do. They're not as emotional, and sometimes they don't know what they're doing. And I'm always defensive of dads because I was born in 1954, and my dad had a full-time job, but he would stay home with my brother and I too while my mom worked.
It was a hard time to get over the stigma, and I think I did never get really over it. I knew how to handle them now, and I know how to maybe answer some of those bad comments you get in society. But we are getting on a way better. The society is changing. Over the last 12 years, I've seen so much change and so much openness suddenly to stay-home dad.
And is that part of what the book addresses, especially for men who want to be the stay-at-home dad?
Yes, the book for sure goes into this, but it also goes to all men who say, I want to support my wife more. You don't necessarily need to be a full stay-home dad. You can still go to work, have your own business, or pursue your career to support your wife.
Oh, yeah.
Help her to excel in
the
workplace.
I 100% agree with you. I can think of examples which I won't mention on the air, but I can think of examples of guys who have fallen into that cultural trap of thinking they have to be, the Lion King or something, and the wife has to be something less than him. And I think both of them can be the Lion King, or Queen if you want. I see that a lot, and I just don't think it's healthy.
No, it's not healthy, and I'm happy that we are over this period. So there are less men who think they need to be the Lion Kings, and we are starting to redefine masculinity. That's such a wonderful trend in society that we talk about. Masculinity doesn't need to be the Marlboro Man of the 70s or I'm just counting on how much I make my money to be masculine. So more the new things like being emotional and supportive are measurements for masculinity now.
And I did learn a new phrase from you, adaptability quotient. I mean, you not only coach the men, but you coach the women also.
I do coach both, and the adaptability quotient is towards when you say, years ago we always said IQ is the most important. And then about 15 years ago, people started to say emotional quotient is very important, and both of them are still important. But I also say now, adaptability. Adaptability is necessary for everybody because we are changing so much. Society is changing, technology is changing, roles are changing, and how can we adapt to them?
And you have to support each other too. That's another lifelong lesson that you learned that you tell us about in the book and on your website.
Yes, so the support of each other has always been the base of every good relationship, and this support just has a little bit to change now when we talk about women starting to make their own career. Women are trying to break the glass ceiling, and they need different supports from what we are used to, what support they need.
So what is the biggest challenge for a stay-at-home dad?
I would say to stay sane.
I love that.
Sorry.
And not to lose your identity by just being home. At the beginning, you step into and everything is about the kids, and then comes this plateau where you say, and what am I doing? What is my purpose in life suddenly? And getting over this down period and hopefully having a partner to support you and help you pull out, I think that's one of the most important or the most challenges.
Do you know, I wonder, and I'm guessing this is true, that women probably go through the same thing. A lady has a baby, and all of a sudden she's staying home and she's not pursuing her career anymore. And she must say, well, what am I doing? All of a sudden everything changes, right? And it probably that challenge that you just described is the same for both of us, both men and women.
I think so. We go through all the same kind of challenges, and some have added challenges. So when we look at the stay-home moms, they find maybe community in the school activities with the children, and find like-headed stay-at-home moms who are suddenly the best friends and play groups for the kids. And it's hard for men to step into those. So luckily, over the last years, there are more and more dad networks popping up where dads can receive the support from peers.
Okay, so let's talk about social time. Like, you go out to the park with the kids, and you're the dad, and all these moms are there. How do you socialize when everybody else who's out there is female?
So for me, and this is again 10 years ago when I was with my son at the park. The time is luckily over. He's grown up. But back then I was more the oddball on the park. I was looked at in a strange way. Why is there suddenly a guy sitting on the parking bench watching the children? So you were not automatically integrated. You were more, sometimes even seen as a threat. Okay, then when you go to the same park and start talking to people, they say, oh, okay, that's his son, and he is there. But in the first moment, moms stay with moms and dads stay alone.
Yeah, I can see. And you know what? You can't blame the women for being worried about us guys, because there's so many creepy guys in the news that are up to no good. So you kind of had it. It was kind of an expected thing, I suppose. So you got over it just by letting them get to know you?
Yes, if you're going there several times and the mom suddenly see that you're playing with your kid and that you're a loving parent instead of just a creep sitting there, that helps.
And that's what's most wonderful about you, is that you're very, very genuine, and you really take parenting to a new level, because women just aren't nurturers. Men are nurturers also.
Yes, and I like to say there is this stigmata that dads babysit on the weekend and moms parent, and this is something I always didn't like to hear when they say, oh, are you babysitting your kids this weekend? No, I'm parenting. I'm taking care
I'm
of
with
my
you.
kids.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm 100% with you. So have you had the circumstance when the kids were younger where another dad comes in and he's feeling, oh my gosh, everybody thinks I'm a creep, and then he sees you sitting there and goes, I wonder if that's a creep, or is that a dad? and you guys became buddies? Did you have a guy friend that you hung out with?
I had some guy friends, but not happening like this. But it was more like they came, I got to know them because the moms their partners told him about me. And the first reaction was, okay, now I have to meet this Andreas guy who is the perfect dad, and I have to make up to it.
Oh no! So do you have to live up to the stereotype of men? Like, do you have to be throwing footballs and grunting and having a big beer belly? I mean, do you have to stick with that stereotype, or can you be just yourself?
I think you can be yourself, and that's the best, is being yourself and making it work how it works for you. So being a German family coming to the U.S., we had so many things we are doing different as a family than Americans would expect us to do. Like, I don't even know how to throw a football. I must be honest, I don't know how to throw a football. So it was always in the park when the kids said, oh, let's play football. No, let's play soccer, guys.
One of the talks that you give, because you are a successful keynote speaker, is how to run a family like a business, the similarities.
Yes, and this is going towards, we have so many great tools for leadership in every company that we say, okay, we give employment training, we do plannings, we have those KPIs to track our progress. And the moment we come home, we forget everything we've learned out there or don't use those. And so this is something I say, okay, let's bring some of those tools into the family, not to make it more organized, not to take out the loving care in the family, but to help improve it. To say, okay, let's track something like, how often do we fight? How often do you have a disagreement with your spouse, and why does it happen? And when you start tracking something like that, you can see, oh, maybe we have to talk about something, or no, it's just happening sometimes. Or the same with maybe the kids' grades at school. Are they staying the same? Do they go up or down depending on how many times we are moving or the mom is out of town? And then we have some data suddenly to track.
And I hate that tracking data, because sometimes it can be skewed. And then when you hear about polls being taken, and you say, well, I'm a parent, how come I wasn't included in this poll? So you also bring that to light.
So those are polls done by somebody else, and the data tracking, if you track it between your partner and yourself and you track it together, it's a different tracking of data. And it's not that we say, hey, there's a science behind it, but just to have a starting point to have a real conversation about it.
And do you think that maybe society needs to catch up, because you and your wife definitely are free thinkers, as myself and my kid's dad and Larry too, we're all free thinkers, but we always come together for the greater good?
I think society has to catch up. The government has to catch up. Like, I'm not making any money, or I didn't make any money years ago. And still, for example, the taxes were filed under my social security number, because it's always filed under the husband. Why does that need to be? Or at school, the school normally first calls the mom. When something happens in their system, they call mom. My wife is in a meeting and suddenly gets a call from school saying, hey, there's something with your daughter. I can't help, call please the husband. So those are where society still lags behind, just as institutions. And of course, there are a lot of old or traditional thinking families who maybe not need to change their way, but to become more open about non-traditional family models.
Just to reintroduce, Andreas Wilderer is on the phone. Andreas, please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong, by the way.
No, that's right. Andreas Wilderer. That's perfect.
Okay. And the book is called Lean On. It's a play on the name Lean In, right? Who did the book Lean In again? I can't remember who did that one.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Okay.
And that was my play, is to say, when we ask for women to lean into their work, on whom can they lean on to? And that must be us men to support them.
I love that. The 5 pillars of support for women in leadership. So I don't know if this is going to be easy on the radio interview, but tell us about the 5 pillars. I'm looking at the graphic of it. It looks like it's family, workplace, partnership, society, and self. Tell me how I use that information to strengthen the family that I'm working with.
So it's more like you have to go through all 5 of those areas to build a solid relationship. And the first one is to go through the pillar of self. Find yourself, know a lot about yourself, know what your ambitions are, what are your goals and what are your dreams. Then put those together with your partnership and compare notes and say, okay, I want to do this as my dream. This is your dream. Where can we come together and define ourselves as a team? And then when we talk about the kids, how can we bring the kids into this boat together to have this solid family? And then we cannot change a lot about maybe the workplace, but we can integrate the workplace into our life and say, okay, how can we deal with the workplace? How can we adjust each other or our family to make it work? That she goes to work, he stays at home, he maybe can still work part-time, all those questions. And then, of course, society, how can we make sure that it works for us? And if it's just to say, okay, we know we are maybe different, and those are the misconceptions society has about us, and we know we cannot change it, but we are not having it as a big problem for us.
So you have to have that conversation before the first child is born?
I would say you can have this conversation any time in your relationship. If you have older children, ideal maybe before you even got married, to say, okay, are we fitting really together? But this is something that goes far beyond my expertise. I would say, yes, start the relationship as soon as you can, and this conversation about what are my dreams, what are your dreams, and how can we make it work that everybody is happy after 20, 30 years, and we are having no regrets. Why did I do this, or why didn't I do it?
Right.
How big of a role does a person's religion play in the upbringing of the children and the harmony between the two partners?
I would say religion plays a big role for a family that has a religious aspect, and it's up on them to define how much do I bring religion into the upbringing of my children. So we believe in God. We are not maybe as religious as some Americans would be, but so we found our own way, and that's what every family must decide for itself. And that's one of my main points in the book is it's okay what the others do as long as you make it work for you, and it must be just between you and your family how to make it work.
So do you communicate with your wife while she's at work on little mundane things like what's for dinner, that kind of stuff?
So my wife is traveling 4 out of 4 weeks, sometimes gone for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and we don't see her at all.
Oh my gosh.
We are communicating with video calls. The kids text her every day. The kids started even playing games or reading goodnight stories via video conferences. So they are adjusted to it. And so we try to have a big line of communication between us as good as possible, because when she's gone so long, the more she knows, the more she feels at home, and the less is the gap when she comes home and suddenly says, what happened here? Why is everything different?
You have a questionnaire on your website that I think is very, very helpful to the individual, whether you're a man or a woman, and to couples.
Yes, it's. I'm going through several questions. Did you have the conversation? Do you have goals? And the results are maybe a little bit short, but it's about the questions. When you say, okay, no, I have not talked about this question, or, oh, yeah, I should think about it. It's more a conversational thought starter. Then you are not, don't expect to get a 10-page report at the end, but use the questions as the way already. Use the questions as the guidance. Where could you maybe change your thinking?
And that communication is extremely important, because sometimes we don't communicate well as a couple or as a family.
Yes, for us, for example, we set yearly goals for our family. We are between Christmas and New Year. Every family member sits down by itself and says, okay, what do I want to have for next year? What do I want to be in 5 years and 10 years? And then we compare notes after everybody has it. And then we put them together and say, okay, you want to do this vacation, or this is your goal to move. No, I don't want to move. How do we find the compromise? And surprisingly, when we did it the first few years, there were a lot of differences where we did not know, oh, is that really what you want? I never knew that about you. So this kind of conversation, to never assume something from your partner, is important.
You are such a wise man, and you're very, very enjoyable to listen to and to watch on your webinars. You really have a great presence about you that makes you feel like a friend, and we should listen.
And Robin said you're a good-looking guy. Robin told me you were a good-looking guy.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Andreas, thank you for being on the air with us today. The book is called Lean On. It's a brand new book. I saw it on Amazon. It looks like a couple weeks ago it was released. It's getting good ratings, by the way, good reviews. Do you have a website you'd like to direct us to?
It's andreaswilderer.com. That's my website.
Okay, very
It's
good.
easily to navigate, and it's a wonderful website, sir. Very wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Well done.
Andreas, it sounds like you have it all together. Sounds like your children have a good dad.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. If you would ask them, they would say no, but that's all children saying about their parents.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, you and your wife sound like you have a beautiful thing going on there. Andreas, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. We'll be right back.
To Two Men in a Truck believes every veteran should be recognized on Veterans Day. That's why Movers for Military is teaming up with WOCA to collect essential items to be delivered this Veterans Day to veterans being assisted by Veterans Helping Veterans USA. To donate items, drop them off at the WOCA studios